following the biggest offseason of moves and acquisitions by General Manager Howie Roseman. The expectations of this city have never been higher. Welcome to the 2022 Lehocky Postgame Show on 6abc.com and across the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, exclusively presented by Lehocky Giordano. Live from the Gallery Bar, booking games inside Ocean Casino Resort. Let's get this postgame show underway. EAGLES, Eagles.
You are looking live at the Ocean Casino, the beautiful gallery right here at Ocean Casino. And I got to tell you, the Eagles win 24-8. And I'll give you like a couple of views right out of the chute here. The Eagles are so superior to the opponents they've played so far that it's downright scary. And today, 9 sacks for the Eagles. Listen, they put a clinic on defensively in the first half. But I will say another thing. Carson Wentz stinks. And
how do you really feel?
It is amazing to me. My mind is blown on how this quarterback situation has turned around in the Eagles' favor when you go way back to think this guy was the franchise quarterback and the drafting of Jalen Hurts was foolish. It has now evolved to this situation where the Eagles a dominant team, at least early in the season. I'm Mike Missinelli. This is Derek Gunn, along with Seth Joyner. Devin Caney's going to join us a little bit later. Guys, I don't know what to say. They're better than everybody they played so far, and to me, the first test they get is in 2 weeks when they have to go to Arizona.
Wow. Well, Mike, you weren't with us for the pregame show, and I had talked about how atrocious Washington's offensive line was. And I said if the Eagles played anywhere close to what they played on Monday night, this game will be over by the third quarter, midway in the third quarter. This game was over before halftime. Washington's offensive line is abysmal. I mean, the Eagles didn't even have to blitz much for them to be effective today. I thought initially they would have to put a little bit more pressure on Carson Wentz with an odd man blitz. They didn't even have to go that route. And Brandon Graham had a Pro Bowl game today. It was that simple.
Hey, there's nothing you could say. I mean, we can't nitpick about this at all because the offense started off slow, and then Jalen Hurts obviously found his stride. And after those first 2 series, the defense was just on it all day long. There were times where they blitzed. They got pressure out of blitz. They got pressure out of 4-man. They got pressure out of 5-man. Each and every week, we talked about last week being a team win. When you look at this win, this is even that much more of a team win. And Mike, to your point, listen, I think the curtain may be falling on Carson Wentz. I really do. I think that, when you watch him try to operate in the pocket and try to operate an offense, it's just not there. Statistically, he doesn't look all that bad when you look at, his overall performance, 25 of 43 for 211 yards. But those yards came in junk time. And a lot of the yards in the last 2 games for him came in junk time. And I really believe after, 9 sacks and not being able to generate anything offensively, that Washington is his last stop. And I'm predicting by the time they get to week 6, week 7, that Tyler Heineke will be the starting quarterback, and the next time that the Eagles face this team, they'll be facing Tyler Heineke instead of Carson Wentz.
Week 6 or week 7, at this point it might be week 4 or 5.
Well, listen, they're paying him. They traded for him, and obviously they picked up the contract. If you're paying a guy $35 million, they're not going to pay him $35 million to sit over there, until things start to get dire for the coaching staff. So, yeah, they're going to ride this out a little longer. Listen, this football team needs to run the ball better in order for Carson to play better. He needs a running game. But at the other end of the spectrum, once things start to go downhill, now you got to start to consider, Ron Rivera's got to start considering his livelihood and his ability to remain head coach beyond this year.
Listen, I don't want to blur the lines on this game because the Eagles really were impressive. I mean, 9 sacks and Devontae Smith with 169 yards in receptions today. But, you can't help but be lured into this Carson Wentz thing, and you watch him play and you go, whatever he had way back when, he has completely lost it. And he's making the same mistakes over and over. Holds the ball too long. Doesn't protect the ball in the pocket. You got a strip sack. He seems to be a guy who's incapable of learning. And I agree with you, Seth. I don't think he's a starting quarterback. He had his moment in this league. He doesn't have the moment anymore. He's a backup quarterback at best in this league right now. And the Eagles took advantage of that. But again, I don't want to blur the lines. This is a game about the Eagles' dominance and how well they're playing, D-Gun.
Oh, there's no question about it. They came to play today, and they knew it was the first NFC East game of the season. They were coming off a short week. They knew what was at stake here. They had watched the films. They had seen the fact that in both of Washington's games, they had to play from behind. One game they were successful. The first game came back and won it. The second game against Detroit, they were not. The Eagles wanted to make sure that Carson and that Washington offense understood one thing. There is no way you're coming back. There's no way you will have any life in this game. They came after Carson all day. When you look at Carson Wentz, and I told you guys this up in the green room, the one thing that has always frustrated me about Carson Wentz is that he's 6'5". He's a big guy. He's an athletic guy. But this sidearm motion he throws with, I never understood that. Even when he throws over the middle, he's always throwing with the sidearm motion. And when you look at a number of his sails, even to the few times he had wide open receivers, what happened? His passes were sailed. You're playing right into a defense's hands. How many 3-and-outs did Washington have? There were times when he could have hit the underneath route and he missed a guy wide open. There were times he could hit the guy in the out route. He missed him wide open because he threw it too short in the dirt, or he threw it too wide, or he threw it over his head. I don't understand who coached this guy.
Well, listen, just like Mike, I don't want to diminish what this defense
Oh, no
did,
question.
Because, last week the question was Kirk Cousins this bad, or was the Eagles defense, this good? Can we ask the same question? Is Carson Wentz really that bad, or is this Eagles defense that good? I submit to you that they made Jared Goff look like an all-pro, quarterback in the second half of the first game. I think that defenses kind of affect what quarterbacks are going to be and how they look and all of those things. So I don't want to, like Mike, I don't want to take anything away from the defense. I don't want to give Carson Wentz the satisfaction of saying, oh, well, he's just that bad. No, defenses affect him. When they started getting after him, they started hitting him just like Kirk Cousins last week. It affected how he threw the ball. It affected the decisions that he made. It affected the turnovers, the sacks. All of those things get affected by what you do from a defensive perspective. So I'm going to say Carson is on the downslide, but I'm not going to take away from the defense and the fact that they forced a lot of that bad stuff that you saw today.
There's no question about it, but we also should throw into the equation just how bad Washington's offensive line was. I mean, the Eagles abused them. You look at the push they got, especially off the edges, to force Carson to step up in the pocket, and when he stepped up, he had nowhere to go.
Right.
I mean, we've seen bad offensive lines in the NFL. I would say this Washington line has to be one of the worst in the NFL right now.
Well, I think they're decimated by injuries,
yes,
but no one's feeling sorry for the fact that they're injured, because everybody has to deal with that. But listen, if you roll them out there on a pro team, it is what it is.
They had 6 sacks, 4 minutes left in the half. They had 6 sacks, 2 strip sacks, which is typical Carson Wentz. It's like amazing that he gives it up like that. But it's interesting because the way this game started, the Commanders came out in kind of a man defensive alignment, Seth, and Jalen Hurts started off slow. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, boom, he hits the long pass to Devontae Smith, which when you look at the replay, how Washington doesn't get a challenge flag in quicker than they did after the fact. Now, they hold on that. They get the 3. But then you get the typical Carson Wentz faux pas, where Brandon Graham gets the strip sack, and they get a touchdown off that on a screen pass to Goddard, and they're off and running 10-0. The one thing they didn't do was they called a foolish play there on 4th and 1. They got a little too cute with the Pascal play, or it'll be 17-0 early, but then it gets to be 17-0 later, and it's not a game anymore. You see the dominance of this team over Washington.
Well, the dominance is there. I think that, when they came out offensively today, they weren't sure what they were going to get. They come out against Detroit in week 1, and they bring the house at them right out the gate. We're going to force the issue and put the pressure on this young quarterback. He uses his legs to get away. Last week, Minnesota was scared to death of letting him out of the pocket and letting him do what he did against the Lions, so they just sat back in zone, and the kids sat in the pocket and picked him apart. They come into this game, so they don't know what to expect. You know, is Washington going to come after them? Are they going to sit back in zone? Which, when you go back and you look at the previous 2 games, that's what they did. They played a lot of zone. But they came into this game, and they didn't necessarily blitz him. But what they did was they played a lot of man coverage, a lot more than what he saw. And it took the coaching staff and it took him a little while to kind of figure it out. I want to give you guys a crazy stat that I looked at and I came up with when I looked back, okay? Because my only minus when you think about this Philadelphia Eagles offense the last couple of weeks is in the second half. They've been pretty dormant, okay? Against the Lions, you look at the second quarter. Look at the score box. In the second quarter, they scored 24 points in the second quarter alone. 24 of the entire 38 points. Week 2 against the Vikings, they scored 17 of their 24 points in the second quarter. Today, they scored all of their points in the second quarter. Now, that tells me that they're making an adjustment in the second quarter, but the game is like so out of reach by the time they get in the second half. They're not even looking to make a further adjustment, and they're not scoring any points in the second half at all. So that's the only part of this offense that's worrisome.
All right, and not only you're worried about that, but social media is all over that.
Right.
The Eagle fans have to find something to worry about. So it's like, well, how come they're not scoring in the second half? And I can't really answer that other than that they understand, even as pro players, Seth, and you were obviously a pro player, and you shouldn't have this mindset, but they understand that team's got nothing for them. And so that mindset goes down to maybe the way you call the game defensively in the second half, the way you think as a player.
Right.
That team is not going to threaten you today, and you know it.
Well, maybe, but in order for you to stay sharp, in my opinion, you know, as a coaching staff, you got to put your players in a much more aggressive posture. How many games did we see last week where teams thought they had the game won with a double-digit lead going into the second half and wound up losing that game, okay? At some point in time, the Eagles are going to find themselves in that situation. And the way you protect from that, because it's like it's hard to get off to a fast start and then pull your feet off the accelerator, and then all of a sudden think you're just going to step on it again and then just pick up. If you got a 60-second game, we're trained to play for a 60-second game. You practice to play for a 60-minute game, rather. Everything that you do is for a 60-minute game. Play for 60 minutes, and when you get to 55 and you got to pull off, then pull off.
You're not wrong, but we're sitting there watching the same game that these players are playing, and we're saying, can Carson Wentz possibly score enough points to beat this team today? I mean, seriously. And if we know that, the players also know that.
Yeah.
They had nothing for them. They weren't going to be able to forge anything offensively to outscore them.
But as a coach, as a coaching staff, the worst thing you can ever allow your team to do is to fall into this position of complacency just because you believe you have the game won. Don't do that.
Oh, I get it. We have not yet seen this team, D-Gun, really be challenged to the point where they have to have a different mindset.
Well, they were challenged in the first game, and that was just because of rust. But the last 2 games, absolutely not. And the one thing I really love about this Eagles offense is week to week, you don't know who the star is going to be. It's A.J. Brown one day. It was Devonta Smith today. Who knows who it could be next week? This offense is so diversified and has so many weapons. You give a defensive coordinator nightmares in trying to defend because you don't have to hone in on 1 or 2 players. They have a multitude of players, from the running backs to the tight ends to the trio of wide receivers they have. You have Quez Watkins, who can burn you at any given moment. A.J. Brown is a grown man. Plain and simple, A.J. Brown's a grown man. You can't defend him one-on-one. He kills you with the slant routes. Devonta Smith is one of the best already in just his second year, one of the best route runners in the game today. Look at the game he had today. Look at the ball he went up and got for the touchdown. That tells you exactly what you're dealing with when you're talking about dealing with this Eagles offense. I don't know how many defenses that they face on their schedule this year can come close to matching up with their offensive personnel.
And their best drive is the one they don't even score on. And that's when they were pinned down at the 6. And all of a sudden, 4 plays get them 77 yards. Bang, Sanders gets him out with a 13-yard run. A.J., with decent coverage, gets 38 on that play. Then Devontae Smith, they get a first down at the 30, and in the flat, the pass goal gets them down to the 7. I mean, bang, 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 bang. Like nothing ever happened. They were pinned down, and then they weren't pinned down because they roll. They have this kind of confidence now offensively.
Well, the only thing that was a little bit worrisome today is they never really got the run game going. And you kind of felt, after the first two series, I had the inclination that they just weren't going to get it going. Those two tackles on the inside are just animals. And a lot of what they tried to do in the run game today wasn't necessarily outside off tackle so much as it was up the middle. I mean, you look at these numbers for the day, it really is just abysmal. They averaged 2.4 yards per carry today, 30 carries for 72 yards. And Miles Sanders, hey, listen, he's only going to get 15 to 16 carries a game anyway. He was right there at 15 for the game today, 46 yards for a 3.1 yard average. I think that the running game is a big part of what they do. Yeah. And Jalen Hurts, 9 carries today. I mean, listen, moving forward, they've got to be able to run the football.
Yeah, you're right. With a 24-0 lead, you would think in the second half they'd be able to run the ball and put the game away. They really didn't attack it like that.
They were so ineffective at running the ball today that in the second half, where they really needed to salt the clock away, they actually had to throw the ball to be able to do it.
Do you realize how demoralizing it is for an offense to be negative yards passing in a game in the first half? Negative yards passing in today's offensive-minded football game.
Yeah.
And you're negative yards in the passing department. If I'm the quarterback, I'm in there screaming at everybody. Of course, the quarterback in this particular case has no right to scream at anybody because he was just as bad as everybody else he was playing with. But that just goes to show you what the Eagles were capable of doing. Now, we went into this game talking about how Washington had a trio of very good pass catchers. Well, guess what? When you don't have time to find them, they're very ineffective. That was the case on Monday night. That was the case again today because of the way the Eagles' front four attacked that offensive line.
Listen, they have to continue to be pressure-minded. And when I say that, there's two different ways that you can do it, okay? You can either do it via the blitz to help when you want to go four-man, or you can just start off on fire with great four-man pressure and every once in a while sprinkle in a blitz. The thing I'm happy about is the fact that, guess what? At least we're getting it, okay? Now, I still want to see a little more creativity on how we actually go about doing it. What you're seeing now is that they'll stay big nickel. Kazir White will be the coverage guy, and they're bringing T.J. Edwards on a delayed blitz, okay? At some point in time, let's get out of that too-high safety, drop one of those safeties down, and bring Kazir White off the edge. So now we can – because teams are looking at film, okay? I always used to say, if you give me 4 game films, and this is the toughest part of the year, the first 4 games of the season. As we move forward, it's going to get more and more difficult for this offense because the more game film I got, the more I can hone in on who you really are, what your tendencies are, what you like to do, formationally, what you like to do, by down and distance and where you are on the field. I can lock into that kind of stuff. So what I'd like to see them do is begin to self-scout now. Don't wait till the bye week.
Right.
Self-scout now,
right,
and look at what you're doing and come up with some creative alternative ways to kind of change up whatever it is you got to do to maintain the level where you are right now, both offensively and defensively. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with special teams.
Listen,
I knew he was going to bring that up.
We're looking for little things that say where they can improve. Today we were a little worried because Goddard goes out of the game. He's got a banged-up shin or whatever that is. I mean, and they didn't score in the second half. So you look at those two things as negatives coming out of here. But the drive before halftime, and we're looking at it, we're going, okay, they're comfortably ahead. you get points out of that drive. You get the field goal. They get the long pass to Devontae, and then it's 4th down. Like they're in a hurry-up situation, 4th down, and it looks like they're rushing to play. And what comes out of it is the great throw in the corner of the end zone of Devontae Smith for a touchdown. Like I said, normally teams will go, okay, let's take a breath here. Let's figure out what we want to do. Hey, hurry up. Get right to the line. They score.
On 4th and 1, though.
Yeah, so 4th and goal. And they make that kind of decision because they're a confident team. And we're both looking at it and going, okay, this is where you kick a field goal. You go in 20-0. And that's not going. We're going to score a touchdown here, and they do. It's just amazing the way this team is responding offensively.
Well, that just goes to show you the utter confidence that Shane Steichen has in overall scheme. It comes down to a lot of times coordinators will second guess themselves in situations, but in this case, because of the diversity of the offense, because of the diversity in the personnel, because of the way they can attack you at any given moment, Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni said, you know what, stop us if you can, and right now nobody can stop them.
No.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until I see it again, because you got to realize the situation. There was 18 seconds left on the clock. You couldn't clock it, and that was not enough time for you to run the field goal team on the field. So did they just kind of stumble into having to go for it?
Maybe. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. If they had to stumble into that, they made it work. This is how charmed they are right now.
They made it work. But I want to stop for a second and consider all the possibilities, because when you went to throw that, when you ran that ball on third down, you knew full well that you didn't have any more timeouts left.
Yeah.
So the only option that you had, if you didn't score, was to go for it on fourth down, because there was no way you was going to get.
So maybe they lucked into it.
Hey, listen, a broke clock is right twice a day, Mike.
I get it.
Every day.
That's my point. Like they're lucking into successful situations here, and everything is going so well that you go, when are they going to get tested? I don't know if Jacksonville comes in next week and tests them.
Right.
That game in Arizona is going to be a tough test for them. I think it's really the first time we may see the true identity of them.
Well, you got a defense that's going to have to not just defend against an Arizona offense. They got to defend against that little pinball wizard named Kyler Murray. And that's a completely different quarterback. You have Jalen Hurts, who's a scramble wizard as it is, but Kyler Murray, who I'm still not sold on as a legit NFL quarterback in the true sense of the word. We watched him last week win that game for Arizona because of his legs. That thoroughly frustrates a defense when you think you have him and he's gone. So they've got to devise two plans when they play Arizona down the road. Number one, to defend the Arizona Cardinals offensive personnel, but more importantly, how do we keep Kyler Murray in the pocket and not let him do the Kyler Murray type things that cause you to have fits?
Yeah, we'll talk about that obviously more later in the show. Lane Johnson's going to be coming up right from the Eagles locker room, and I'm anxious to hear what he has to say about the dominance of this offense. And I'm also going to unveil a statistic that involves Lane Johnson that you guys aren't going to believe. It's an unbelievable stat. We'll run it by Lane. You're listening to and watching the Pond Lehocky Postgame Show. We're live at Ocean Casino. You can see all the festivities behind us. You're watching us on 6abc.com and JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. We're back after this.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.